Good morning, boys and girls. Today we are on page 179 of your student journal, and we are on lesson 3. So today we're actually going to be doing something a little bit different. So today our objective says, today I will tell time to the half hour. To the half hour. So let's look at our vocabulary first and see if we see something a little bit different. So what I see is my analog clock has my circle round face, and I see my two hands. I see my short hour hand. Let's write our word short. And I see my long minute hand. But what I see that looks a little bit different is we've been seeing our minute hand always on the 12, and now my minute hand is on the 6. So we call this a half hour. So what time this says is, if I see my hour hand, if you notice, it's not pointing exactly to the 8 anymore. It's kind of pointing in the middle. What this tells me is, it's 8, it's not yet 9, but it's more than 8. So my hour is actually 8 because I'm not yet at the 9. So that gets a little tricky. So we have to kind of look at that. So my hour hand is 8, and then my minute hand is called 30 minutes. Now the reason it's 30 minutes, boys and girls, is because an hour has 60 minutes in it. So 30 is half of 60. We also call this a half hour because what we did in our last unit, remember we talked about half? If I look at my whole circle, and if my minute hand went from the 12 and it went all the way around and now it's here, look how much of the circle that it went over. It went over half the circle. So we call that a half hour because it moved from the 12 to the 6, which means it moved half of the circle. Okay, so our steps today are, we're going to look at our clock. We're going to identify the hour hand, which is our short hand, and record the hour. And then we're going to identify the minute hand, which remember is our long hand. And it says if the minute hand is not on the 12, we're going to count by 5s to identify and record the minutes. What we're going to do today is we're just going to look that when it's on the 6, pointing straight to the 6, that means that that is 30 minutes on our digital clock. So when our hand points to the 6, that means 30 minutes because that's called a half hour. Okay, so I'm going to give you a second to catch up your notes, and then we're going to try some, or I'm going to try some of these and let you watch me do this. All right, so boys and girls, I'm going to grab my red pen and I want you just to watch for a moment. So here's my first problem. It says what time is shown on the clock. So they give me an analog clock and they want me to fill in the digital. Okay, so I'm going to first look at my hands, and I see my short hand and my long hand. So what I notice about my short hand is it's a little bit past the 2, but it's not at the 3 yet. So we call that a 2. The hour's 2 because it passed the 2, but it didn't reach the 3 yet. And then when I look at my minute hand, because it's pointing straight to the 6, that means it went half the circle, or half an hour, because it went from the 12 all the way to the 6. So we call that 30 minutes. So I would say this is 2:30. That's how I would read that, 2:30. Okay, let's try another one. So my directions say what time is shown on the clock. So I'm going to look at my hands, and I first see my hour hand. So my hour hand's right there. So it looks like it's more than 11, but it didn't get to 12 yet. It's not 12 o'clock. So I'm going to say my hour hand is called 11. And when my minute hand is pointing straight at the 6, that is 30 minutes because it made half the hour and the hour is 60 minutes. So I read this as 11:30. Okay, so boys and girls, let's try some together. Okay, if you have your book, we are on page 180. Okay, my question says, what time is shown on the clock? Okay, so when I look at the clock, I first look at my two different hands and I see my short hour hand. And my short hour hand is pointing this way. So my short hour hand passed the 4, but it didn't get to 5 yet, which means my hour is 4 o'clock because it's not 5 yet. And when I look at my minute long hand, it's pointing straight to the 6, which means that's a half hour, which is the same as 30 minutes. So we would say this is 4:30. That's how I read that, 4:30. Okay, let's try another one, boys and girls. So I see what time is shown on the clock. Okay, so let's look at our hands first. And we see our short hour hand is right here. So it looks like my short hour hand is more than 8, but it's not yet 9. It's not 9 yet, so we have to say it's 8. And then because our minute hand is straight on the 6, that means it's a half hour, which is the same as 30 minutes. So on my digital clock, it says 8:30. Okay, so boys and girls, what you're going to be doing today is you're going to be turning the page and trying 2 on your own. Have a good day. Bye.